In this video, we'll be talking about designing the folder structure for the feature definitions, the feature symbologies, and the element templates. The first thing you'll do is create your feature definition list. So I've already created a list of the Conduit feature definitions. And the next step is going to be forming a path or a folder structure to hold those feature definitions. A good rule of thumb when building the folder structure is to try to be consistent between the features, the symbologies, and the element templates. And this is going to make your features much easier to manage. So I'm going to start with the feature definition path, and then once I have that set, I'm going to go and apply that as closely as I can to the symbologies as well as to the element templates. It's also going to be helpful for you to keep a session of open roads open. Perhaps use the Delivered Drainage and Utilities DGNlib as an example, and that'll help you create your own folder structure. So starting with our features, if I look inside of open roads under feature definitions and go under conduits, conduit is going to be the start of my path. And then if I'm doing drainage, stormwater is going to be the next. So I'm not able to rename these two folders, so that'll be set. And then everything past this point, I will be able to customize however I want. Okay, so the first two folders are going to be conduit and then stormwater. And then we can start building out the paths from there. So right now I have all my pipes in a pipe folder. You might go further than this. You could also organize them into different shapes or different materials. It's really up to you. Just recommend trying to not to create too many folders or too few folders. So I think a good number of feature definitions per folder is somewhere between 10 and 20. I think anytime you go above 20, you're going to have too much scrolling to try to find a feature definition. If you're going less than that, you're probably going to have too many folders to have to dig through. So it is nice to have them in an actual list as opposed to a bunch of folders. And so another thing to consider is how are you going to handle your existing versus your proposed. So we could do the existing first or the proposed first and then fill out and have a matching format between existing and proposed. What I think you'll find is you're going to have less existing features, a lot less. So you might not necessarily need to match that entire format, or you'll get into a situation where you have too many folders and not a lot of features in those folders. So what I've chosen to do is I have just one pipe folder, and then I'm going to have one existing folder that's going to hold my existing pipes, culverts, gutters, ditches, and channels. And I've followed this throughout, so I have a folder for culverts, I have a folder for gutters, for ditches, and for channels. Now I'm going to start applying that to my symbology. So we move over to the symbology section. I'm going to go back to open roads for a minute and take a look at a feature definition for a conduit. So any one of these will do. Right, so if we look at the symbology section, we have three symbologies that need to be defined, and all three of these do need to be defined. So that's the profile, the solid, and the center. So now, not only do I want to be consistent with my pathing, but I also want to try to have some consistency with my naming convention. Right, so first let's think about the center symbology. So for all of these pipes, maybe all of that is going to be on the same level. Or maybe I don't want to see it at all and it's all going to just be on a color that doesn't display or construction class. So unless you want to annotate these different features differently in plan view, or if you want to have them on different symbologies or use a different level, there's really no point in having separate center symbologies here. And the same would be true for profile or solid. So I could create one symbology called pipe center, store it here, and then I could use that or assign it to all of these feature definitions. And this is what I mean by reusing symbologies and element templates as much as you can. So you don't have to have separate symbologies and element templates, even though you have separate feature definitions. We're going to try to limit the amount of element templates and symbologies that we need to create by recognizing where they can be reused. This is another great reason to start with a list so it's easier to identify those. I have the same situation with profile. Now notice the symbologies I have separate for the solids, and that's because I'm going to have a material assignment inside of those element templates. So I do need to have a different solid symbology for the different materials.